There's something being spoken over your life in the Spirit right now that will not just encourage you, it will mark you. This is not one of those words you stumble on and forget. This is the kind of word that wraps around your heart and stays. The kind you come back to in the middle of the night. The kind that brings tears for reasons you can't even explain. Because this is the moment God tells you, I'm sending the miracle you didn't even ask for. Yes, you've been praying. Yes, you've been believing. Yes, you've cried for breakthrough, for timing, for peace, for answers. But this miracle, it goes beyond your words. This is the miracle that comes out of the heartache you couldn't articulate. The wound you never found language for. The pain you buried so deep that you learned to function around it. And yet God saw it. He saw the moment you felt forgotten and chose silence instead of complaint. He saw the moment you got passed over and decided not to harden your heart. He saw the moment you lost your strength but kept showing up anyway. And while you were learning how to live without what you thought you needed, heaven was writing the answer to what your soul was too tired to request. This is what David meant when he wrote, "Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely." Psalm 139 banding and part. That's what kind of miracle is coming. The kind born in silence, conceived in suffering, delivered in perfect timing. You've been waiting for one thing, but God is sending something deeper. You've been asking for a fix, but God is planning a fulfillment. This is what Ephesians 3:20 meant when it said He is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. It's the immeasurably more kind of miracle, the kind that walks into the room of your soul and rearranges what you thought your life had to settle for. Because you've settled quietly, not in a way people could see, but in the decisions you made when you were tired of being disappointed, in the things you stopped hoping for when hope started feeling cruel, in the way you learned to adjust your expectations just to survive. But God is not intimidated by what you've lowered. He's still committed to what He promised. And some of those promises, you forgot you even carried them. You moved on, you shut the door. You said, "It's okay, I'll be fine." And still, heaven said, "No, there's more." And now, God is doing something you didn't have the strength to even request. He's going back into the hidden room of your heart where the disappointment lives, where the fear still hides, where the younger version of you still wonders if you were ever really chosen. And He's not just coming with comfort, He's coming with completion. Because this miracle is not just about giving you something new, it's about healing what broke while you were waiting. And some of that healing is going to look like things finally clicking, emotions finally softening, tension finally lifting, closed doors finally swinging open without force. You'll feel something shift in your body, your breath, your spirit. You'll walk into rooms and know, I'm no longer carrying that weight. And the miracle will not be dramatic, it will be divine. It will be clear, but quiet. It will be soft, but strong. It will be beautiful, and it will make you cry not because you're sad, but because your spirit will recognize what your words never got to ask for. This is the miracle that proves God has been watching the parts of you you forgot how to show, and it will bless your life in layers. It will touch what's next, but it will also go back and soothe what was. That's why you have to watch until the end, because some of you are right on the edge of walking, waking up, shutting down, adjusting again. But this is the moment heaven intervenes. This is the moment God says, you don't even have to ask, I've already sent it. That moment where the phone call comes out of nowhere, that encounter you didn't expect, that peace you couldn't earn, that opportunity you didn't chase, That yes, that comes without striving. That healing. That shows up where medicine couldn't reach. This is what Isaiah 65:24 looks like when God says, "Before they call, I will answer. While they are still speaking, I will hear." You didn't miss it. You didn't pray to soph. You weren't too late. You weren't too broken. You weren't overlooked, you were seen, and the miracle is already moving. The angels are already released. The answer is already in motion. And even now, just listening to this word, you can feel the weight lifting. You can feel the echo in your spirit saying, "This is the word I didn't even know I needed." And that's exactly the miracle that's coming. The one you didn't even know to need. The one you were too tired to request. The one you never dared to imagine. It's already en route. And nothing can stop it. Not even you. Watch what God does next. There are some miracles that don't wait for your words. They wait for your wounds to reach a fullness. Only God understands. And when they do, they arrive without warning, without a headline, without explanation, because God isn't responding to your voice. He's responding to the ache inside of you that you stopped explaining to anyone a long time ago. This is not the miracle you shouted for. This is the one you cried for when no one was looking. The one that sat behind the mask you wore so well. The one that got buried beneath the weight of unanswered prayers and unspoken fears and disappointments. Too sacred to share. And it's in this exact place that God says, "I'm sending what you didn't ask for, but you need." Because there are some prayers so deep they never make it to your lips, and still heaven hears them. There are longings in your soul that have no vocabulary, but still they rise up as a fragrance before the throne of God. Psalm 38:9 says, "Lord, all my desire is before you, and my sighing is not hidden from you." That means even your sighs are seen. Even the fatigue you feel when you open your eyes in the morning, that counts. Even the moment you sat in silence because you didn't have words for what was breaking inside of you, that mattered. Even when you stopped praying about it because it hurt too much to say it out loud, heaven still held it. God is not limited to the things you managed to articulate. He's moved by the honesty you showed when no one else could hear it. And this miracle that's on its way to you now is not a reaction, it's a response. A response to years of spiritual tension, a response to seasons of wondering if you've been forgotten. A response to all the silent amens you whispered after comforting someone else, knowing that no one had the capacity to check on you. A response to the years you gave, sacrificed, stayed faithful, and carried other people's burdens while secretly asking God why yours felt so heavy. This miracle is a reward, not for performance, but for perseverance. And yes, you tried to lower your expectations to protect your heart. Yes, you told yourself, maybe this isn't my time. Yes, you convinced yourself that you could live with just enough. But God never called you to just enough. He called you to overflow. He called you to press down, shaken together, and running over. And no, you didn't pray for this kind of miracle because you didn't think it was even available to you. But God never needed your permission to be good to you. He never needed your perfect prayer to release His perfect will. What He needed was the crack in your heart, the surrendered ache, the humble silence that says, "God, I don't even know what to ask anymore." And heaven said, "That's enough." Because you were never forgotten. You were planted, hidden, covered, prepared, protected. And now, heaven is preparing a release that's so divine, so tailored, so perfectly timed that when it arrives, you'll know this didn't come from me. This came from God. You'll look back at seasons you once hated and say, I understand now why it had to break, why I had to wait, why they had to leave, why it didn't make sense. Because had God given you what you thought you wanted, it would have satisfied your moment but starved your calling. But this miracle, this one was designed to feed your purpose, not just your pain. It's the miracle that silences shame, the one that rewrites your story, the one that unlocks healing in places you stopped visiting, the one that doesn't just answer your current need, it heals your history. The miracle you didn't ask for is the one God designed from the beginning to reach all the way down into the generational mess. The inner child cries, the trauma-coated silence, the repeated cycles, and declare, this ends here. And some of you are about to walk into rooms you didn't know were reserved for you. Some of you are about to receive news that will leave you speechless, not because it was what you were praying for, but because it's something you thought had passed you by. And when it arrives, it won't require your effort. It will only require your yes. You won't need to prove you're worthy. You won't need to over-explain. You won't need to rehearse your pain to convince someone to bless you. God is bypassing people. He's bypassing systems. He's bypassing protocols. And He's releasing a miracle so drenched in mercy and favor that it will make up for everything you cried for in secret. And the beauty of it is this: you didn't even ask for it. You asked for survival, and God is giving you overflow. You asked for closure, and God is giving you destiny. You asked for someone to just understand you, and God is sending someone to love you deeply. You asked for relief, and God is sending revelation, because you're not forgotten, you're not late, you're not less than. You are about to become living proof that Romans 8:26-27 is still true. The Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans, in accordance with the will of God. That means even when you didn't know what to pray, the Spirit prayed through you. And now, those prayers are bearing fruit. Now, those groans are turning into glory. Now, that silence is becoming a suddenly. You were never behind. You were never being punished. You were being positioned for the miracle you didn't even know to ask for. And now, it's coming. You've been fighting battles no one clapped for, carrying weights no one acknowledged, surviving storms that left no evidence on the outside but tore you up inside, and still you stayed faithful. Still you kept going. Still you smiled when you wanted to cry. Still you helped others when you were drowning silently. Still you spoke encouragement while waiting for your own, and heaven took notice. Not one tear went unnoticed. Not one act of quiet obedience. Not one late-night prayer whispered from an exhausted soul. Not one moment where you said, God, I don't understand, but I'll trust you anyway, went overlooked. And now, heaven has responded in a way that's not logical, not predictable, not even fully understandable. It's not just a blessing. It's not just a breakthrough. It's a miracle you didn't even ask for. Because somewhere along the line, you stopped praying bold prayers. Not because you didn't believe, but because you didn't want to be disappointed again. Somewhere in the process, you stopped asking for more and started asking just to be okay. And God, in His mercy, said, I'm not giving you what you settled for. I'm giving you what I promised. Because you didn't choose yourself for this miracle, He did. You didn't have to be the loudest, the most perfect, the most impressive. You just had to endure without quitting. And that's what you did. You didn't even know that you're quiet. Survival was intercession. You didn't even realize that just staying faithful in the mundane was warfare. That every time you said amen and still felt empty, something in the spirit realm shifted. That's why Galatians 6-9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And you didn't give up. You may have slowed down, you may have cried, you may have questioned, but deep down your spirit said, "I still believe something good can come out of this." And that mustard seed of faith, just that tiny hope, was enough to unlock this moment. The moment where God does what you never dared to ask for. Not the miracle you crafted in your mind, but the one that was written before you were formed in the womb. The one that doesn't just fix the outer problem, but rewires the inner core. The one that doesn't come to perform, but comes to transform. The one that says, "You didn't miss me. I was working behind the silence." And this kind of miracle isn't flashy. It's personal. It's gentle. It slips into your life like peace. It walks into your room like relief. It speaks to your soul like an old friend. And suddenly you realize this is what I actually needed. Not attention, not applause, not validation, but divine reassurance that God never forgot me. That all the no's weren't rejections, they were redirections. That the loneliness was not abandonment, it was alignment. That the silence wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Because sometimes the miracle doesn't come until your heart can hold it without idolizing it. Until your mind can receive it without doubting it. Until your emotions can trust it without running from it. And that's the version of you that's being blessed now. Not the striving you. Not the hustling you. Not the one who tried to be perfect for approval. But the healed, surrendered, tender, available version of you, the one God has been forming through every fire. And for some of you, this miracle will feel like ease for the first time in years. You've lived in tension so long that peace feels suspicious. But this next season won't require the kind of emotional effort you're used to. You will walk into places where the doors were already opened for you. You will meet people who speak your language without you having to explain your pain. You will rest in rooms where your presence doesn't feel like too much. Because this miracle comes with alignment, divine connections, soul rest, supernatural timing, wisdom you didn't ask for but needed, provision you stopped praying for but never stopped needing. And the crazy part is, you didn't even know this level of peace was available. That's what 1 Corinthians 2:9 was talking about when it said, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love Him." You couldn't have imagined this miracle because you didn't know how to dream at that level anymore. But God never stopped dreaming over you. He never stopped preparing. He never stopped arranging. And now, this miracle is the manifestation of years of hidden grace. You may not recognize it at first, because it's not going to look like your last breakthrough. It's not going to come the same way, but your spirit will know. Your heart will lean in. Your tears will fall not out of sorrow, but out of holy release. And when it comes, all the things you carried will start falling off. The worry, the delay, the pressure, the fear, the survival thinking, the guilt, the self-blame, the spiritual fatigue, all of it lifted. Because this miracle doesn't come to remind you of what you endured, it comes to redeem it. You may not have asked for it. You may not have even believed for it, but it's coming. It's already on the way. And when it gets here, your entire life, past, present, and future, will bow under the weight of God's kindness and say, "I didn't ask for it, but it's exactly what I needed." Sometimes the most powerful prayer you ever pray is the one you whisper through tears when no one is watching God. just do what I can't. And heaven does not ignore that kind of surrender. That prayer becomes a door. That sigh becomes a strategy. That moment of complete release becomes the very thing God uses to perform the miracle you didn't even know how to ask for. Because some pain goes too deep for words. Some disappointment becomes too tangled for human logic. Some cycles wear you down to the point where you stop asking for blessings. You just want the bleeding to stop. And in those moments, God doesn't wait for you to speak. He responds to your surrender. That's what Romans 8:26 meant when it said, "The Spirit helps us in our weakness." We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. And when the Spirit groans on your behalf, heaven starts moving in directions that don't match your requests, but match your destiny. Because sometimes what you wanted would have delayed what you were called to. And now God is releasing a miracle that goes beyond your prayer listed, goes straight to your purpose. This is the kind of miracle that redeems lost years, not just lost things. This is the miracle that comes when you thought it was too late, too broken, too far gone. But God never saw you as late. He saw you as hidden, protected, preserved, for a time such as this. And now, just when you're about to settle into another season of silent survival, heaven is interrupting your expectations. God is sending the miracle you buried, the dream you buried because it was too painful to believe in again, the hope you buried because hoping started to feel like torture, the version of you that you buried because disappointment kept stealing your courage. And yet God never forgot. He held on to what you buried. He covered it in grace. He kept it alive under the soil of silence. And now He's saying, it's time. Not because you're finally perfect. Not because you figured it all out. Not because you prayed more. But because grace said yes. And this kind of miracle is proof that grace doesn't operate on your calendar. It moves on heaven's timing. You thought the delay was denial, but it was actually development. You thought the silence was punishment, but it was preparation. And now that the preparation has reached maturity, the promise is about to manifest. And it won't be something you have to force. It won't be something you have to chase. It won't be something you have to explain. It will fit. It will flow. It will come without striving. And when it comes, you'll realize, I didn't even ask for this. But your spirit will say, this is what I was missing all along. Because God saw the prayers behind the prayer. He saw the questions behind the praise. He saw the fatigue behind your faith. And He sent a miracle that matches what your heart never got to say. That's how good He is. That's how complete His healing is. He doesn't just answer prayers, He translates pain into breakthrough. And what He's about to do in your life will not only shock you, it will restore you. It will give you back the years that were stolen. It will make peace with the seasons that made you bitter. It will close doors that drained you and open doors that recognize you. Because the miracle is not just about solving a problem, about revealing your real identity. The one you lost under stress, the one you forgot while surviving, the one you buried to keep others comfortable. That version of you is being resurrected through this miracle. And that's why it's coming now, because you're ready. You're not the same person who once idolized outcomes. You're not the same version of yourself who needed applause to feel worthy. You're not the same soul who begged people to see you. You've matured, you've softened, you've surrendered, and now you're positioned to receive without needing to control. That's what Isaiah 30 minutes and 18 seconds meant when it said, "The Lord longs to be gracious to you. Therefore He will rise up to show you compassion. He's not just waiting on your request, he's longing to bless you. And now, his longing has turned into movement. This is the miracle that answers prayers you never said out loud. This is the miracle that arrives quietly but shakes everything. The miracle that pulls you out of patterns. The miracle that ends emotional fatigue. The miracle that puts you in rooms where your name was already discussed. The miracle that fills your lungs with laughter again. The miracle that confirms that nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the heartbreak, not the waiting. God kept all of it. And now, he's transforming it into a testimony that will restore others. Because when this miracle hits your life, people around you will know this had to be God. Not because it's flashy, not because it's big, but because it's exactly what was needed, at the exact time it was needed, in the exact way only. God could deliver, and when you see it, all your questions will fall silent, and all your soul will be able to say is, I didn't ask for this, but I needed this more than I knew. There's something sacred about the silence you've been walking through. You thought it meant heaven was quiet. You thought it meant God was done speaking. You thought maybe you missed the instruction, or the opportunity, or the last window of grace. But what if this silence was actually the sound of something being built? What if the quiet you've been surviving was actually the echo of heaven preparing a miracle you couldn't survive if you knew it was coming too soon? What if this stillness was not emptiness but strategy? You see, God knows how to keep things hidden until the soil is ready. And you, beloved, are the soil. This silence has been cultivating something in you: humility, endurance, clarity, trust. This silence has been God's kindness, even when it felt like absence. And now, right in the middle of that quiet surrender, comes the miracle you didn't ask for, the one you needed, but didn't know how to say. The one your faith secretly grieved when time kept ticking and nothing changed. The one your soul was afraid to even hope for anymore. And yet, it's here. Because you've reached the moment where your surrender is louder than your striving. You've reached the place where heaven says, now. Now that you're no longer worshipping the outcome. Now that you're no longer proving your worth through performance. Now that your identity is not married to your circumstances. Now that you've been emptied of everything but trust. That's what Proverbs 3-5-6 was trying to build in you all along. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. You didn't know it, but God's been straightening your path through surrender. And now, that path is about to deliver something you couldn't have manipulated even if you tried. Something so tailor-made for your spirit that when it arrives, you'll say, only God could have known I needed this. Because here's the truth. You were faithful in a season where there was no evidence your faith was working. You prayed when it felt like praying didn't move anything. You believed when belief felt like betrayal to your logic. You kept your heart open when closing it would have been easier. And that kind of faith, it pulls miracles from heaven that didn't need to be requested. They were assigned. Because your obedience in the dark was louder than 1,000 public declarations. Your surrender in silence reached the throne faster than any perfect performance ever could. And now, God is sending what only surrender can unlock. A miracle that will come quietly but speak loudly. It will whisper, this is what you waited for. Not the thing you were begging for, but the thing you didn't know how to explain. The inner healing, the full circle moment, the restoration of your dignity, the reintroduction of joy, the soft place for your heart to land. And when it comes, it will not require convincing. You won't have to explain why you're worthy of it. You won't have to prove you've done enough. You won't have to earn it. Because this is not a reward for effort, it's a release of mercy. This is what Isaiah 30 minutes and 18 seconds meant. Yet the Lord longs to be gracious to you. Therefore he will rise up to show you compassion. He longs to bless you. He rises to cover you in compassion. And now heaven is rising in your direction. Angels are moving with your name written on the command. Doors are opening not because you knocked hard enough, but because you waited long enough. This miracle is proof that waiting is not weakness, it's worship, that surrender is not passivity, it's positioning, that when your voice grew quiet, your spirit was actually growing louder. You were being aligned with the pace of heaven. And now you are walking into alignment with a miracle that won't just change your life, but will change your perspective. You'll begin to see the beauty in the delay. You'll begin to thank God for the things that didn't happen when you thought they should. You'll begin to recognize how protected you really were when you felt forgotten. Because this is not just a miracle, it's a revelation. A glimpse into how deeply God has been caring for you, even when you felt nothing happening. He was gathering the pieces. He was preparing the people. He was shifting the atmosphere. He was orchestrating the yes behind the scenes while you were walking by faith and not by sight. And now, here comes the moment where your faith is met with fulfillment. Not just of a desire, but of a design, heaven's design for your life. The kind of miracle that will cause people to say, "How did that happen for you?" And your only answer will be, "I didn't even ask for it, but God knew." Because he always knows. He saw the little girl or little boy inside of you still wondering if they mattered. He saw the tears that fell on the steering wheel. He saw the silent frustration while sitting in rooms filled with noise. He saw the quiet decisions you made to not become bitter. And he said, "That's enough. I'll respond to that." And now he is. And when it shows up, whether in a call, a door, a relationship, an idea, a moment of peace, recognize it. Don't overthink it. Don't downplay it. Don't explain it away. Receive it. Because it was heaven's idea, not yours. And that's why it will never be taken from you. Because what God initiates, he sustains. What he sends, he protects. What he appoints, he finishes. You didn't ask for it, but it's yours, and it's coming now. There's a kind of miracle that doesn't come because you asked it, comes because of who you became in the waiting, who you decided to be when no one was watching, how you kept showing up even after hope quietly slipped through your fingers. And that's the miracle God is sending you now, not in response to performance, but as a reward for alignment. Because alignment always pulls heaven into your life, even when your prayers sound more like groans than declarations, even when all you had left was breath, even when all you could say was, "God, I don't know anymore," and still you stayed, and God saw it, and while you were counting your losses, heaven was counting your consistency, and while you were shrinking your expectations just to make it through the week, the King of Glory was building a miracle behind the veil that matched your growth, not your grief. And now it's arriving not because you reminded God enough times, but because you finally rested in him long enough to become ready. And this is what makes it different. This is not a miracle that's coming to validate you. It's a miracle that comes because you've already been validated by heaven. And nothing anyone says or doesn't say can shift what God has already sealed. For Psalm 31:19 says, "How great is your goodness, which you have stored up for those who fear you, which you bestow in the sight of men on those who take refuge in you." And that's exactly what you've been doing without knowing it. Have been taking refuge in God. Not in outcomes, not in attention, not in applause, not in answers. And because of that, the stored up goodness of the Lord is about to be poured out on you in ways that won't make sense to people who only measure miracles by what's visible. Because this one is about timing, depth, and spiritual precision. This is the miracle that sneaks into your day like peace and settles into your body, like rest and unlocks clarity you didn't even know you were missing. This is the kind of miracle that causes the spiritual fog to lift, the emotional tension to loosen, the background warfare to break, and suddenly things you used to strive for now start responding to you. And the people who didn't see you before now start asking where you've been. But it's not about being seen, it's about being prepared. And now you're ready for what used to intimidate you. Now you're ready to walk through the doors you used to feel disqualified for. Now you're ready to receive without shrinking, to rise without apologizing, to rest without guilt. Because this miracle comes to confirm what God always knew about you, even when you didn't see it yourself. And some of you don't realize it, but you've already stepped into it tits, not on the way. It's already here, it's happening. In small divine details, in tiny daily shifts, in quiet confirmations, and before long, it will unfold in full. And you'll stand in the middle of a moment and realize, I didn't ask for this, but this is exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it, and tears will fall not from sadness, not from fear, but from holy recognition, from divine familiarity, from the Spirit inside of you whispering, see, I never left you. I've been working this whole time, and this is where your surrender starts showing up in your atmosphere. This is where your prayers prayed in weariness begin producing fruit in fullness. This is where the no's start making sense, and the delays start feeling like protection, and the closed doors start looking like detours into destiny. Because when God sends what you didn't ask for, it's never random, it's restorative. And some of you are about to watch God restore what you never even told people you lost. Things you didn't post about, hurts you never confessed, silent tears, invisible scars, and He's going to do it in a way that doesn't need to be broadcast. Because it's not about proving anything, it's about experiencing everything He already promised, and that's why this moment is so sacred. Because you're about to encounter a version of God that loves you past your wounds, provides for you beyond your prayers, and reveals a plan that was bigger than your pain. This is the God of Ephesians 3:20. Now unto Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. You didn't ask, but He's doing it anyway, not because of your works, but because of His heart toward you, not because you got it all right, but because you didn't give up. And this miracle is the kind that closes chapters without bitterness, that ends cycles without trauma, that releases you into joy without explanation. And when it lands in your life, the only thing you'll be able to do is worship. Not because it was what you were expecting, but because it reminded you who He is. And in the process of showing you who He is, He's also about to show you who you are, called, kept, covered, chosen, and now blessed beyond what you ever dared to ask for.